Support for WUWM podcasts comes from University School of Milwaukee, fulfilling a values-based mission of developing learners, fostering leaders, and preparing citizens for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. More information at usm.org/mission.
From 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Joy Powers. Today, the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools shares how the district will move forward now that money withheld from the state has been released.
I hope that we will continue to demonstrate to them that they can trust us, that we are fully transparent and available and responsive to families, that we will continue to resolve any concerns that they have.
Then we'll explore how to get kids reading.
The sooner we can engage kids in those emergent literacy skills, and the more we can get them engaging with books and other printed materials, the better.
Plus, we'll hear new local music in our Milwaukee Music Roundup. All of that is coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Joy Powers, and thank you so much for joining us. Milwaukee public school leaders learned last week that the state was releasing the final portion of money it withheld in 2024. The money has been held up after the district missed financial reporting deadlines. The financial woes led to the resignation of former Superintendent Keith Posley. Now, Wisconsin's Department of Public Instruction has released $8 million to the district after it submitted all its late financial reports. It marks another major turn for the state's largest school district as it tries to earn back the trust of the public and state regulators. WUWM education reporter Catherine Kokel catches up with MPS Superintendent Dr. Brenda Caselius.
What does this mean for you to get these final dollars back?
Well, it is just an exciting day for us here. We worked so hard to get to this point. It was 3 audits within, just over a year, barely. And the team just kind of dug in and got this done. And it wasn't without a lot of scrutiny and difficulty, but we got it done, and it means a great deal to us personally. And also, I think it means a great deal to our students, our teachers, and our public, our families, that we are going to tighten our belts and know where every dollar is and get back to fiscal prudence and good reporting and transparency in our reporting. And more importantly, the state can depend on us. And I think that that's really important.
Thank you. This chunk of $8 million from the state was billed for achievement gap reduction. Can you explain what that means to someone who might not be familiar? I will also add that the district said that there was no stop in services. How is that possible?
That's possible because we had a fund balance. And so, we have a $1.6 billion budget. And so there's always some funding that is available, in terms of our month to actuals. And so we're able to cover the funding that way. And then AGR is the achievement gap reduction funding, and that's used for class size reduction. And it can be used for coaching. And so those schools that get that funding, we're still able to get that funding, from us and our general fund. And we just carried that until the funding came through.
Lots of carrying things, covering things early, waiting for state reimbursement. That happens a lot in education. So I appreciate you kind of breaking down that it was possible for there not to be a stop in services. We are starting 2026 with a lot of skeletons of last year, kind of making their way back into the closet, if you excuse my metaphor. Although there is some work ahead, the district has announced that a majority of its lead remediation project is over. You've been hiring and restructuring district offices left and right. What does that mean for the year ahead when we take all of this together? Lead remediation, new hires, this final kind of tranche of money coming from the state. What does that mean?
Well, it means that we're in a better and more stable position moving forward in order to rebuild. We'll know where our finances are. We'll have transparent reporting. What we have found out, because we were able to do the 23, the 24, and the 25 audit, is that we do have some shortfalls. And so I will be presenting that next week to the board. We are going to have to tighten the belt even more in order to, to have fiscal prudence and to be sure that we are good stewards of the public's trust and allocating that money closer to the classroom where students receive services. And, focusing on our three big core pillars, which is operational excellence, academic achievement, and safety and welcoming schools. That is where we will place our focus. And this allows us to continue to rebuild now and to focus on student achievement.
So there's been a lot of progress, but what would you say to parents or families who still say that they don't trust MPS with money after all they've seen?
Well, I understand that it takes a while to rebuild trust. And so, I don't blame parents for taking their time. But I hope that we will continue to demonstrate to them that they can trust us, that we are fully transparent and available and responsive to families, that we will continue to resolve any concerns that they have and show. And part of our website redesign is that we will have better reporting and better accessibility for our parents, and really doing so in all languages too. So I know that it will take time. And I hope that our lead cleanup, and I hope that our finance cleanup and our literacy plan shows that we are making progress toward building that trust with families.
We are hearing a lot right now about potential school closures. We know that those are not coming for the fall of 2026. Can you explain if there is a relationship between this chunk of money and the potential need to close schools?
So Perkins Eastman was a contractor who was working with the district prior to my arrival on facility improvements, looking at the condition of our facilities, looking at utilization of our facilities. And what they did was to be able to present to the board their findings around our building use, utilization, deferred maintenance, and condition. And within that, they recommended some mergers or closures. Obviously, that would give some cost savings to the district over many, many years. And so what we are doing is creating a proposal to the district around investing in our neighborhoods that we believe have had disinvestment before. And this is from the construction fund. It's not from a grant resource or from state or federal funding to the district or from our general operating fund. So there's very different categories of restricted funds. And what we were talking about around these investments in particular were coming out of the construction fund. And that's not the Achievement Gap Reduction Fund.
Thank you. We're kind of in the midst of talking about school closures, and I don't want people to be like, oh, we got this $8 million back from the state. Maybe we don't have to close schools after all. That it's completely separate. So,
yeah, I mean, I think also as we begin to talk about the budget process for next year's budget, I am going to be working with my budget team and our communications team so that the documents presented to the public are very transparent and easy to read so that they can understand the different pots of money that come into the district. I think it's really important for the public to understand, even with this fiscal, kind of accomplishment today, many people believe that it was mismanagement of funding, and it really wasn't. What it was that our two systems did not talk to one another, and so it was more about accounting and reporting and making sure that the state had full sight of our finances here in Milwaukee Public Schools.
That was Milwaukee Public Schools Superintendent Brenda Casalius, speaking with WUWM education reporter Catherine Kokel. Today, we're wrapping up our month-long series on literacy, with a focus on the earliest stages of learning to read. Most literacy experts will say the best time for a child to start learning to read is way before they step foot in a classroom for the first time. Elizabeth Bermoji is the Dean of the School of Education at the University of Michigan. She joins WUWM education reporter Catherine Kokel to talk about how to get kids reading.
Starting off pretty big, because I know everybody likes to have the entire problem laid at their feet. But based on your experience and your research, when is the best time for a child to start learning how to read?
Well, so I will start by saying the best way to teach a young child to read is from birth, or perhaps even before, because language is absolutely crucial to learning to read. So the more we engage with children in rich conversation, using a lot of words and using them pointedly and showing them words and showing them alphabet letters, it's about really engaging children in both oral and written discourse. And what we know from our research, and when I say our research, I mean the field, is that the more conversational work that's done, the richer the conversations, the better the literacy learning. So often people talk about young children learning to read and older children reading to learn. But in fact, all people across the developmental spectrum are always learning to read, because even at our ages, we might still encounter print that requires us to learn how to read in that particular domain. And all children are also reading to learn, even from that very young age. So when they're reading something like a sign, McDonald's signs, little kids learn McDonald's very quickly. They recognize the word, they recognize the symbol of the golden arches, all of that. This is not an ad, by the way, for McDonald's, but they do learn to read it very, very quickly. But that's because there's a purpose. They know that means something. It means a treat that I like to eat. And so that, that combination of knowing that there's a purpose and reading for meaning with breaking the code and understanding what words mean and how they change in different contexts and how texts are structured and what they're for, all of that needs to start very early in a developmentally appropriate way. And it needs to continue throughout the lifespan, again, in developmentally appropriate ways.
And I find this really interesting because I'm not a researcher, I'm a reporter, but when I talk to people who had children during the pandemic, they spent a lot more time at home doing what you just talked about, like talking to their children, getting them more comfortable with language. And now those children are 5, which is unbelievable for me to think about. But they had a very different experience than young children who were in school already during the pandemic and kind of missed that crucial window of in-classroom literacy instruction. And so this is a solutions-facing series on literacy, and we're talking about what works and helping people kind of understand the problem, but also trying to figure out how we can move forward. And I wonder, in your research, what is the best way to teach a child to read and help them become a strong reader at all age levels?
So what I've seen work, of course, depends on the age range. I'm going to talk about, say, pre-K 5, 5th grade. And then that is less my area of direct expertise, but I am a K-12 certified reading specialist. So I can speak from some expertise. And then I'll talk about the older kids. The sooner we can engage kids in learning, those emergent literacy skills, and the more we can get them engaging with books and other printed materials and with writing and producing language, and the more that we can provide them with rich conversational experiences, the better. So that implicates preschool. One of my colleagues here is a national expert in early childhood education, and she has research that showcases the enormous value, not just immediate, but long-term value of preschool education. We know this, and it is so difficult to get this started around the country. So she's working on education policy initiatives to provide free universal preschool education, to make that part of, what is now the K-12 curriculum, to start children younger. We know that well-resourced families have all kinds of resources that they're providing to their children. They're either, sending them to incredibly high quality daycare and preschool, like I did with my child, or they are providing nannies or other kinds of experiences for children. So we know that for children who don't have the resources, for families who don't have the resources and can't send their children to really high quality daycare and preschool, we need to be providing that. We know that children who don't have access to that enter school, I'm going to use the language that I don't always love to use, behind their peers. So they start school at a different place from other 5-year-olds. And it's fascinating to see that actually school works. Kids learn. We can see that everybody is moving up the learning trajectory. Some of that is development, of course, but they are actually learning. And you can even see the gap actually start to shrink a little bit, and then it just starts to widen. It has huge implications for their later learning, right? Because access to the skills they need to be able to engage with texts at more and more sophisticated levels is not there, right? They just don't have those skills. So we know that kids start in different places. And if we want to do anything to close that opportunity gap, we need to be providing early education. The sooner, the better.
That might actually be the tagline for this series of stories I'm working on, the sooner the better, because it comes up again and again when we talk about literacy. What about the older grades? What about middle and high schoolers? Hopefully these are students who have had literacy education in younger grades, but how do you keep them engaged and how do you kind of support them being strong readers?
So they should be engaged in rich and meaningful projects that inspire them to read and write. We have a problem. Like there's a lot of evidence that our young people cannot read in a sustained way long passages of text. And everybody wants to blame our devices and social media. And there's probably some blame there. The medium does drive practice. But we should also be asking ourselves, why should kids want to read these texts? How are we motivating them to read these texts? What questions are they answering by reading these texts? Are the texts actually engaging them? It doesn't mean they have to be relevant to them, but they have to learn the relevance of the text. And they do that by trying to address a particular problem. I could go on and on about this. I could tell you about our school, which is a Detroit public school that we've partnered with, where we do all project and place-based work, where we're doing design thinking and engineering. And this is what we're attempting to do, to really put these projects into practice and to study this so that people can see what happens when you do this in a vertically aligned way. So we know where those preschoolers are going, and those 12th grade teachers know where they came from. And we also are doing it in an intergenerational way so that they're learning with and from each other. And we're very, very highly focused on literacy development, math development, but also science development and social science development. And then, of course, all brought together by our focus on design thinking and engineering. Very purposeful and meaningful practices.
Elizabeth Burmoji is the Dean of the School of Education at the University of Michigan. She spoke with WUWM education reporter Catherine Kokel for WUWM's series on literacy called Turning the Page, Teaching Milwaukee to Read. You can find all of that reporting at WUWM.com. Later in the show, we'll hear some new local music in the Milwaukee Music Roundup. But first, Wisconsin chef Elena Terry talks about cooking with indigenous foods. That's coming up next on Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. You're listening to Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Joy Powers. Season 21 of Top Chef was all about Wisconsin. One of the contestants that season was Elena Terry. She worked in the restaurant industry for more than a decade before switching to the role of full-time community builder. As a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation, Terry founded Wild Berries in 2017 to bring struggling members of her tribe back into the community. The organization provides mentorship and vocational skills and expertise in seed-to-table cooking. Lake Effect's Sam Woods is joined by Terry to talk about Wild Berries and the merits of traditional and experimental cooking.
Elena, I want to start with your relationship to food as a child. Can you tell me a story of food playing a role in your early life?
Sure. I mean, I have a very young food memory of being like a toddler and seeing my great grandmother, who she was the one that they brought turtles to and wild game to clean. But most specifically, I remember a turtle because for us, they're like incredible figures in our stories, creation. They're like these ultimate warriors. They live on land and in the water, like these beautiful, very sacred beings they would take to my great grandma to care for and to clean when we had ceremony. And she talked to them and prayed with them and explained what she was going to do so that their spirit knew why they were there. It was not a moment of fear or like being timid around what she was doing as she cared for these animals, but it was more like this deep sense of this is where I belong, like being outside at the fireplace with not just my great grandmother, but my grandma and her sisters, and feeling like the warmth of the fire or smelling the smoke and hearing them speak Ho-Chunk. Like that for me, still to this day, is a very peaceful and comforting memory. And it is all centered around our traditional food.
How do you continue to honor that memory today?
I would say by being able to bring my children and my grandchildren around that same space and give them the experience as best that I can in this day and age with the same amount of nurturing and education that went with it. It was so much more than a process. It was an understanding. It was a spiritual connection. It was a lesson on land stewardship and caring for our animals. Like all of this was intertwined in that one act, of really preparing a very sacred food for us. So when we're doing those actions or taking care of those very sacred foods in those spaces, I try to be as mindful as I can in instruction and in the space even, and having like good feelings and approaching it with prayer. It's the way we're supposed to live our lives. And it's continuing that teaching in those spaces.
So in addition to being a world-renowned chef, you also run an organization called Wild Berries. Can you tell me a little bit about what Wild Berries is and what it does?
Sure. So Wild Berries was founded as a response to a call to action from our tribe. In around 2017, and still to this day, unfortunately, we've been suffering great loss from things like alcoholism, drug abuse, or addiction issues, even mental health issues in our community. And our tribe had these meetings and they said, what can you do? What can you do as tribal members to promote community involvement, to get people to show up? And I was like, well, I can contribute in this very specific space. I can create a space in the kitchen. And we started by working with the tribal judge. I think they had a little conference for drug court and wellness, and they asked us if we could cater. And so I called people from the drug court who are participants to come in and cook with us. it just ended up being this beautiful movement of, if this is a very specific space that I can create and have for people who are trying to come back to their community, who are trying to overcome these incredibly difficult issues to overcome, maybe by sharing a meal or by sharing a kitchen space, they can know that they're still welcome. Like, our lives aren't meant to be perfect. And so why are we so judgmental when people stumble in our community to the point that they don't feel welcome back? So here's a way that we can build a bridge. Like, we can say, anybody in any situation, I don't know, for people who've worked in a restaurant, know that in a kitchen, if you're willing to show up and work hard, you can be successful in that space. So not only are we creating a bridge for them to come back to our community, but we're helping build life skills and vocational skills in the process. So for me, Wild Berries was a place where I could heal as well, where I could go and be a part of my community in a stronger and more grounded way, where I could still contribute, but do my job, which is a chef, which I love being, but I could also be a part of my tribe in a way where I felt I could contribute.
What stood out to me as you're describing Wild Berries' origin story is that, there was this community-wide call to action. We have this issue. We have people who feel like they're on the outs. How can we bring them in? And your contribution to that is saying, like, well, I have some skills. I'm going to stand on that. I have some skills, and I can use those skills to help bring folks in. Am I hearing that correctly? Was that how this all got started? It was just like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah. And if I can do it, we can do it, right? Like, if I can do it, then I can help you. We can do it together. And it's this sense of, like, how did we forget what a tribe was? How did we forget what the very meaning of being a tribe is? And in celebrating individuality and saying that we're stronger together. Like, it's bringing those core values back when we have to exist in, a capitalistic society. We're all part of this greater community, but that doesn't mean we're not part of our tribe. We're the great Ho Chunk Nation. So how do we treat each other like that and recognize that, like, you are beautiful with all your imperfections, and if anything, stand alongside me because I'm here for you. Like, I see you, like, you have value to me.
Yeah. I want to move to a conversation about food as both tradition and experimentation. So, as you know, food is a flexible medium. On the one hand, say you're preparing a squash soup in a traditional manner that connects you to cultural history, and the taste you get from that dish is a shared experience between you and generations before you who have prepared it in the same way and all that. But on the other hand, fusion food is incredible. I mean, you put some kimchi and some sweet chili sauce and, I don't know, some roasted garlic on a hot dog, and I'll be talking about it for months. But I'm curious how you balance these two truths. How do you know when it is appropriate to honor tradition in a dish and when it is appropriate to experiment and see what you can do?
I mean, there are times with my community when I'm cooking and I want it to be all ancestral. Like, I have seeds and corn that's saved up just meant for our tribal communities because that's all we have enough for. We don't have enough to feed our greater community some of these very exclusive foods that are still coming back to us. So there are times when I'm like, this is going to be all decolonized, all very traditional. We're starting with a prayer in the morning. And then there are times when, was for a great part of my children's life, a single mother. And I want to cook foods that I'm going to get them to appreciate. Like, I want to use blue corn in a way that it's palatable to them without restriction. Like, if I want to make that in a cookie, I'm going to. Or if I'm going to, have venison a different way and use potatoes. I don't like living in a box with restrictions, especially when it comes to food. Like, there are definitely times when I feel like the decolonized menu has to be the way to go, and I'm capable of doing that on a very high level. But I also think there's times when we really need to honor that, food is food. And how are we going to choose to feed ourselves in this moment? Is it going to be by celebrating that I can make a cookie out of this ingredient, or I don't have to? Like I don't like limiting myself by certain parameters and just saying that not only is the food appreciated, but it's the process. And however I want to develop those flavors or develop your experience, enhance it, I'm going to do that without restriction. So I really like to say, like, am I capable? Absolutely. Can I do it on in any given moment? Cook completely decolonized. That's like no beef, no chicken, no eggs, no dairy, all of these wheat flour, or am I going to not limit myself with those parameters because I don't have to? Nobody said I absolutely have to. And am I going to give you an experience that you won't forget?
So, say a dish is placed in front of you. Do you find yourself wondering what that dish's story is, or the story of the chef behind that dish?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are times when you can tell that, a chef is doing something because they believe that it's going to turn out good and it tastes good, and it very technically is. But there's also these times when you have a bite and you're like, wow, like they brought me somewhere. Like I understand a much deeper sense of who the chef is based on this one bite. Like there can be very technically executed perfection in dishes where I'm like, it was okay. And there's other dishes that it's like, wow, I understand a little bit more. And they've brought me into their world. And I think that with a meal or a bite as a chef, that's the ultimate compliment, right? Is that's what you want. You want to engage your diner in an experience, not just a bite, and you want them to understand things a little bit more deeply, like to embed sensical memories from smell to sight to the taste. That's what the experience should be. And you can have a really good experience with a very well technically executed meal, but it's nothing compared to one where a chef is really engaging with you and bringing you on a journey.
Is there a dish you've had recently where it has just taken you on a journey like that?
Hmm.
And I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
There has been one bite which I just had at the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival by Chef Claudette Zepeda, and it was amazing. And we were tasked to focus on local ingredients and the local purveyors, and then make a dish based on what they kind of gave us a list. And she made this like tortilla crusted deep fried eggplant bite with smoked fish, and it looked very simple on a plate, like a scoop of fish on top of a little, eggplant bite. But when you took a bite, it was like, oh, wow, there's smoky charred tortilla crisp and creamy eggplant. And like, not only is the smoke of the fish hitting you, but on the back end, you get the chili, which like is 100% Claudette. And I was like, wow, she really nailed this. And like everything I could have expected from her was in this one bite. Like that is what you hope to achieve as a chef.
Yeah. I noticed how you said the phrase, that's 100% Claudette. It stuck out to me there. If there's certain things where you taste it, like, yes, this tastes like you made it.
Yeah. And I mean, it was like a version of the everlasting gobstopper, right? Where you were like, oh, this is the front end, and then it transforms as you're chewing it. And then on the end, you're left with like, I need to go get another one of these because I need to experience that again. Like that is what you hope to achieve when you're creating these experiences, because it is more than a bite. It is like, I want you to understand a little bit more about who I am based on this bite, or bring you to my space, because for me, that's what it's about. It's sharing the story of who we are.
Speaking of the story of who we are, well, we're getting close to the end of our time, but I want to end not with a question, but an invitation for you to have the final word.
Sure. I think the beauty of my job in this moment is emerging from the pandemic. Chefs had a different type of clout and credibility. We almost had to become experts in these fields of sourcing, of advocacy, of the business part of it all. I think in the end, it is all based on a passion, on this beauty of feeding people. And how are we going to choose to continue to feed people in a greater environment that is constantly going to be changing on us? And I will say that for me as a chef, the beauty has been in the solidarity amongst, the others doing this work. I've been able to meet some incredibly inspiring chefs and have transformative conversation with them who are doing similar but incredibly different work than I am doing. But we all have the same goal of a better tomorrow. So you don't have to be a chef for that to be your goal, right? You can do whatever you'd like in life for that to be your goal. So, like, how can we stand better and stronger together with the end result being a brighter and better tomorrow? I would like to see that happen, even whatever small ripples of change we put into place now.
Well, Elena, thank you so much for spending some time with me and for joining me on Lake Effect. I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Elena Terry is the executive chef and founder of Wild Berries. She spoke with Lake Effect Sam Woods in 2024. Lake Effect is available as a podcast, so you can listen when you like. Find it wherever you get your podcasts, then subscribe, download, and listen on demand. Coming up, our Milwaukee Music Roundup will explore some of the best new songs from local musicians. Plus, we'll listen back to a song from Immortal Girlfriend's William Bush, who passed away late last year. That's next on Lake Effect, on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. This is Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Joy Powers. Every month, Matt Wild from Milwaukee Record creates a list of some of the best new songs from local musicians. And every month, he shares a few of those songs with us for the Milwaukee Music Roundup. Matt Wild, as always, thank you so much for joining us here on Lake Effect.
Thank you, as always, for having me.
So this first song is what I would call quintessential indie rock. It's from a group that I know we've talked about with a name that feels very relevant at the moment, Barely Civil.
That's right, Barely Civil. And yes, this is a group we have talked about. Back in 2024, Barely Civil put out a fantastic record called I'd Say I'm Not Fine, and I'm sure I brought that record up on the show back then. Had one of my favorite songs of that year. It's called Better Now. I implore you to check out that song if you have not heard it. Anyway, Barely Civil is back. They have a new song, and it's got a great title. It's called Bang, Slam, Crash. A lot of exclamation marks in there. And it is just a fantastic Barely Civil song. It's very quintessential indie rock, as you said. I would say maybe even kind of a heavier emo sound to it. It is part of a new split EP that Barely Civil is doing with another fantastic Milwaukee band. That band is called Known Moons, and they're doing the split EP. It's coming out in February, and Barely Civil plus Known Moons, and the EP is called Barely Known. So there's two songs each from both bands. So the song we'll be listening to is the first one from Barely Civil. It's fantastic, and it is called Bang, Slam, Crash.
hearing Slam Crash by Barely Civil, very Batman-esque 1960s
That's
Batman.
right. Kapow.
So this next song, very much a double feature of sorts. It is by Known Moons from the same EP. Tell us a bit about this.
Absolutely. If we played the Barely Civil song, we have to listen to the other half of the Barely Known EP, and here we have Known Moons. Their song that they have on here, the one we're going to be listening to, is called Time, and it is a fantastic example of what Known Moons does. They are another kind of quintessential Milwaukee indie rock band. I would put maybe a little bit of dream pop in there as well. Back in 2024, Known Moons also put out a fantastic record on their own. That record was called Everything Is, and that also had one of my favorite songs of that year. It's called Simultaneous Highs, and I'm positive we talked about that back in 2024. So yes, Known Moons, they are teaming up with Barely Civil for this Barely Known EP. And the interesting thing about Known Moons in this case, the group started out as a recording project for the front person, Andrew James, and he was actually inspired to kind of make Known Moons into an actual band that could play live. He was inspired by Barely Civil. Barely Civil was such a huge fan of the Known Moons project that they convinced him to, turn this thing into a real band. And so now, fast forward 2 years, here they are, both on the same EP, a fantastic team-up of two fantastic bands. This is Known Moons with Time.
By Known Moons. The next song we're going to look at, I would describe as maybe pop punk. It feels like it kind of harkens back to the mid-2000s, that era that I think has returned in fashion.
Oh, absolutely. Pop
checkered
punk.
Shoes, spiky haircuts, like the whole thing.
100%. It is back. It has been about 20 years, so it is back. And yes, I would also describe this song as kind of a pop punk with a little bit of synth punk tossed in as well. It is the newest song from a Milwaukee group called Brave You. And the song and the EP that they just released is entitled Hyenas. So this song that we're going to be listening to is the title track from this EP. And in a way, there's kind of not much to say about this group. They've been around for, a couple of years, since 2020 or so. And they're just a good, solid pop punk kind of band. And they just do what they do so well. And I was really kind of taken aback by this EP. It's just 3 songs, but I was like, wow, I really, really like this. And it's just a solid piece of work. And I really do love the synths that are kind of tossed in there as well. So it's just a great crunchy, just pop punk song with some great synths. So yes, this is Brave You with the title track from their new EP. It is called Hyenas.
Surround yourself with hyenas when the winter comes.
by Brave You. Now, the final song we'll be listening to actually isn't a new song, but it's from an artist that listeners will be very familiar with, Black Challenger. The artist behind Black Challenger, Will Bush, passed away on Christmas Eve. He was just 39, but, he has really left behind a moving and just beautiful legacy.
Absolutely. The Milwaukee music scene is a lesser place with the loss of Will Bush. As you said, passed away at 39 on Christmas Eve 2025. Will, as you mentioned, had a solo project called Black Challenger. He was also probably better known as one half of Immortal Girlfriend, a fantastic dark electronic synth group that he did for many years with his brother Kevin. And I know we've talked about Immortal Girlfriend on the show before. I know we've talked about Black Challenger before on the show. They were fantastic. Immortal Girlfriend was fantastic. And like I said, the Milwaukee music scene is a lesser place without Will in it. So I thought, it definitely need to pay a little tribute to him. So the last song we'll be listening to for this segment is a Black Challenger track. It's from 2021. It was from a record called Radiance, and the song is called Cosmic Power. And Black Challenger definitely had a lot in common with Immortal Girlfriend, kind of dark synth. Black Challenger was, I think, mostly, if not all, instrumental. It was just like fantastic kind of soundtrack music, dark synth soundtrack music, the kind of thing you would find in like an old John Carpenter movie or something like that. It's terribly sad that Will is gone, but his music lives on. So this is Black Challenger with Cosmic Power.
Cosmic Power by Black Challenger. Now, we have really entered, I would say, kind of the, I don't want to say the downside of the year, like the low point of the year, but...
Are there any up points of the year at this point? I don't know.
Fair point. That being said, we are, getting into the end of January now, heading into February. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I actually enjoy January because it is a fresh start. And, especially this last song we're talking about from an artist who passed away. And we lost many artists, Milwaukee artists, this past year. That, of course, is incredibly sad. But, I'm still a sucker for the promise of a new year. And what I'm looking forward to this year is just more stuff, new stuff. There's all these things that we can always lose, that we lose throughout the year. But each month and each year, there's always new stuff. And it's one of the things that I really, really love about my job. And it's what I also love about coming on this show is talking about new stuff. And that makes me happy. Like I said, some old things can fall away and disappear. But there's always, at the end of the month or at the beginning of a new year, there's the promise of new stuff. So I'm looking forward to that new stuff. I'm also looking forward to, Bernhardt's Mitten Fest in February. So it's going to be a great winter.
Very nice. Well, Matt Wild, as always, thank you for joining us here on Lake Effect.
Thanks for having me.
Matt Wild is the co-founder of Milwaukee Record. Every month, he joins Lake Effect to talk about some of the best new music from local bands. At WUWM.com, you can find all of our previous conversations. And that wraps up today's show. I'm Joy Powers. If you missed any of Lake Effect this week, you can find all of our conversations at WUWM.com. If you'd like to take the show on the go, you can download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow on Lake Effect, we'll take a look at Milwaukee's first city health assessment since 2022. Thanks so much for joining us right here on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.